Hello, my friends. Welcome to not a top 10, 20, 30, or even 40, but a top 50. That's right, a top 50 of my favorite movies of all time. This originally was just going to be a top 10, then a top 20, then a top 30, and then even a top 40. But then I realized there are just way too many movies that I just pure love that I need to talk about. So I figured 50, good solid number. This was inspired by the nostalgia critic James Rolfe, and The Chosen One, as he recently, a few months ago, did his top 20 favorite movies of all time. And I was actually going to do a response to that not too long afterwards, and I did, but I didn't feel it was good enough. So I sat on it, I thought about it a little bit, and now I feel as though I am ready to do this. Now keep in mind, I'm not doing all 50 at once. We'd be here all night. I'm going to do 10 tonight, 10 tomorrow, 10 the day after, 10 the day after, and so on, until we get all 50 in. I do have the stacks already stacked up, but for right now, we're just going to start at the beginning, and we're going to make our way down. And just because these are low on the list, they are by no means straight guilty pleasures or anything like that. No, these are genuine good movies. These are classics in their own right. And I know that the first one I'm going to pull out here is going to be very, very controversial. It's Cannibal Holocaust. You see, here's the thing about Cannibal Holocaust. I got to make sure to not show the back because there's nudity on the back of this. This is a brutal movie. This is a violent movie. It's just as violent today as it was back then. Showing this to people now will probably shock them, appall them, and just wonder how the director managed to get away with it. But he didn't. He actually had to go to court for this, because it looks like he actually did kill the actors in this movie. And it's, like I said, it's very brutal, very realistic. The impalement scene, that was brutal. No one sees the person being impaled, but you see the impalement. But throughout the whole movie, it's just grim and grisly, but I love it for that reason. It is realistic, it's brutal, it's bloody, it's violent, it's everything I love. It's a horror film. It does exactly what a horror film is supposed to do. Make the viewer seem uncomfortable, make the viewer seem scared, make the viewer just seem not safe, and this movie does it perfectly. This is why it's one of the best horror movies ever. It's because it is a horror film. Next is the original Inglorious Basterds, and not in terms that the new Inglorious Basterds is a remake, but as in the 70s movie called Inglorious Basterds, which lightly inspired Quentin Tarantino's Inglorious Basterds. They don't have the same plot or anything like that. It's just a World War II movie. But I like this one a lot more because it's a lot more fun, a lot more entertaining, a lot more action-packed, not as dialogue heavy. There's nothing wrong with Inglorious Basterds, but this one I just felt as though the pacing was just right on. It's a very underrated action film. It's one of the most entertaining war films there is. In terms of being a genuinely good war film, like Saving Private Ryan, it's not like that. It's just a fun action film. And that's kind of what people will have to go into looking at it. And that's why I love it. Now we're going to go back to horror for a little bit. The next few movies are horror. The one after this, but the one after the next one isn't horror. But then we go back into horror for a little bit. And it's the all-time classic masterpiece of horror, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now this is one of those masterpiece films that first time, it's like watching a nightmare unfold, and it is so scary. It's not a fast-paced horror film by today's standards, but the chilling atmosphere, the scenery, how it's almost shot like a documentary, but it's not. The beginning, the text scroll, if that doesn't send chills down people's spine, I don't know what's wrong with them. And Leatherface, when the first time seeing Leatherface, it is so frightening how because he's not really evil if you think about it enough. He's just a mindless idiot who's under control by this one guy. He's someone who just went insane, that entire family. And just knowing that this is lightly inspired by Ed Gein, his character at least, lightly. The whole movie just has this unsettling tone because it feels real. It feels as though something like that could actually happen. And this is why it still holds up today. It's one of the most frightening movies ever. It holds up. It's wonderful. And this release is beautiful, by the way. I highly recommend picking that one up, the 4K release. Next. While not as classic as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I find this one to be a bit more fun of a horror film. And it's Wes Craven's new Nightmare. This is my favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. The whole idea that Freddy Krueger is becoming a real thing, that's terrifying. I can't figure out anyone who wouldn't think that Freddy Krueger coming to life isn't terrifying. Now it's more of a monster. It's more of a demon taking the likeness of Freddy Krueger. But still, it is awesome, this movie. This movie, watching it today, is still as fun as I remember it being. It's brutal too. It's not like just straight camp like most of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. This one was actually scary. This one actually took it to the next level. The scene in the hospital, this is reminiscent of the first Nightmare on Elm Street. My favorite ones are this one, the third one, and the first one. Not particularly in that order, but this one is my favorite of the series. Yeah, and the thing, why those ones work so well is because all three of them are directed by Wes Craven. And this one, just really, this one stands the test of time. I think the best out of all of them. I think the problem with the first one was the ending was a little forced. The second one, while it was fun, it did have a few camp moments. This one had the light bit of camp, but also had the great scares of the first one, and that's why it's one of my favorite slashers ever. It's not my favorite slasher of all time. Many people already know what my favorite slasher of all time is. We'll get to that later. But as of now, this one honestly blows my mind. Still to this day, I love it. Next, some people do like this movie, some people don't like this movie. This one was kind of my middle school movie, and I loved it, and ever since. And I still like it to this day. I know a lot of people think it's stupid, but I don't care. It's a Napoleon Dynamite. I'm not going to talk too much about this movie, but I just think it's a funny movie. I like the character of Napoleon Dynamite. He's the very much stereotypical nerd. But still, it's just a good middle school, high school movie that really, it's harmless, but it is entertaining. The characters are all likable. It's a lot of fun to watch, and I can sit down and watch any day. It's a good background movie, but I do like sitting down and actually watching it, and I do remember a lot of the quotes from the movie too. Now we're going back to horror. And it's Lucio Fulci's masterpiece, Zombie 2. I like this release of it. I don't have the Zombie 2 release, but there's multiple releases of this. I think there's also a Blu-ray release that I didn't get yet. But the gore in this film, oh my goodness, the eye scene. If anyone who's seen this movie knows what I mean when I say the eye scene. The pacing, the acting, the action in it. It's wonderful. This is just a great zombie film. It's a lot of fun. Not necessarily scary. Most zombie films aren't even that scary. But this one's just a great, fun, bloody zombie film. That's why I like it so much. Don't worry, we'll get more zombie movies in this list. But as of now, this one's my favorite zombie film. Not so far on this list. We'll get more, like I said. But the music also is another high point of this movie. The music in this movie is very chilling. Yeah, that's at the very end of the movie. That ending chills down my spine. Okay. Next, oh man, I'm gonna anger a lot of people in saying this, so I'm gonna take a drink before I do. It's just water. Calm down. But I like this movie more than The Goonies. I think it holds up better than The Goonies. I like the characters better than I do in The Goonies. It could be that I also really much enjoy the villains in this movie because I grew up liking these types of villains. Which is probably why I enjoy this movie a lot more than The Goonies. I like The Goonies, don't get me wrong, The Goonies is a great film. But this one, in my opinion, is just one that will always hold a special place. Even though I didn't really see it till high school, this one I feel as though connects to parts of my child that The Goonies didn't, and it's the Monster Squad. You know, has all the Universal monsters in it. Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, the Mummy's in it, but he's not on the cover, I don't think. This is a great Halloween movie too. That's why it holds a special place, because if anyone knows me, Halloween's my favorite holiday ever. So, pardon me. That's why I enjoy this movie a lot more than The Goonies. Like I said, The Goonies is a good film, but I just like the whole idea of a Goonies type movie done with monsters. That's why it holds a step above The Goonies. Maybe if this had the Goonies characters in it, it'd be even better. But I love the characters in this movie also. The fat kid, he's always funny. I know that's kind of a dumb joke. And of course, everyone knows the famous line from Wolfman's got nards. Anyways, it's a classic all around. Next, very underrated vampire film. This movie needs more attention. It's Fright Night. Some people might have thought I was going to say Near Dark, which I love Near Dark, but if I made a top 51 list, that might have made it on there. But I like Fright Night more because this one feels more 80s. It feels more inspired, but also keeps the whole idea of the classics in mind when it was being made. And it's a lot of fun. Peter Vincent is a lot of fun to watch in this film. All the characters are. Every character in this movie is fun. That's what I love about this movie. Every character in this movie is fun. Even the girlfriend, well, she's still fun to watch when she turns into the vampire. Not a major spoiler. But, what does the disc look like? Okay, yeah, it's just one of these types of discs. But the whole movie, I remember watching this the first time and I was like, this is a great vampire film. This needs to be seen more. And I hope Fright Night Part 2 comes out on an official DVD one day, because I really want to see that. I haven't seen that yet, but as of now, this one still holds up as a great movie, even though the ending was kind of weird. And apparently the second movie doesn't even follow the ending of the first one. Next is the only documentary I have on this list, and it's Pumping Iron. Now, I don't consider myself a bodybuilder or anything like that. I do work out a lot, but I don't do bodybuilding. I do more strength related stuff. But this is awesome. It's it's an easy watching documentary, and that's why I like it. I like seeing where Arnold Schwarzenegger started. I like seeing where Lou Ferrigno started. A lot of the bodybuilders in this movie, though, they just stayed in the sport. They didn't do any acting aside from Lou Ferrigno and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's who the movie follows, basically, is them two. I know this isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger's first movie. He did Hercules in New York first, which there's two different cuts of that movie. One of them has his voice, and the other one's a dubbed over voice, and his voice is really bad in the movie, so I can understand why they dubbed him over. But Arnold obviously improved over time. This also isn't the only Arnold Schwarzenegger movie on this list, I promise. But the whole movie is just, the whole documentary is just wonderful. It's just an easy watching underdog story of Lou Ferrigno trying to beat Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's a lot of fun. A lot of love was put into this. It's just, like I said, easy to watch, fun to watch, all around a great time. The last one. This isn't my favorite Disney animated movie. We'll get to that later. But this is one, I think my mom said this was the first movie I've ever seen in theaters. I don't remember because I was really young then. Even though I lightly remember seeing it with my great-grandmother, and this movie is just an all-around classic. It's Disney's The Lion King. Now, it's just so beautifully animated and shot. This is the Blu-ray of it. I know it comes in this weird, it came in the black case, not the Blu-ray case, but I'm not complaining about it too much. And the whole movie is just awesome. And Matthew Broderick is one of his best roles as the character of Simba. And everyone knows this movie. Everyone knows that it's a great movie. Everyone knows it's a fantastic movie. Not just an animated film, but just a film in general. And it's just a lot of fun to watch. And it's a shame that not a lot of animated movies that are coming out today are as good as this one. But still, the animation is great, the story is great, the classic story of good versus evil. The characters are all great. Timon and Pumbaa are really funny, even still, as an adult, I think they're funny. And all around, this movie is just a great classic. Anyways, That's the start of this list. The first 10 will come back soon for the next 10 and then the next until we're done with my top 50 favorite films of all time. I love films and so should you. You all take care. God bless.